Welcome to Dennis Money's 2 Cents, your weekly recap of headlines and stories. I'm Matt.
I'm Will.
And I'm Rabih.
Yes, we all are. Will, you're dealing with some sniffles or
Yeah.
something? Something's going on for like the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I just can't breathe through my nose, so who knows? Bear with me if I sound congested.
Yeah, you were saying that the ironic thing here is that the one word you struggle with the most is what?
Money. But I had to really try hard to not say muddy on that one.
You were telling us before we went on that like that's the one word you struggle with because of whatever reason, like
yeah,
the way
and
it comes out.
Client, well, yeah, I think it's like the N and the M sound are the hardest to make when you're congested, and that's the word I say a lot on client calls.
You have so much muddy right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, we have a packed show today. We're excited. We are talking, of course, market update from Rabih. We are talking tipping culture. And then, of course, we got to get in a plug with Taylor Swift. We're going to finish with that. T-Swizzle. We're going to try to chase some clout like everyone else is right now and see if we can get our listens up using Taylor Swift. I think she's carrying basically the entire economy right now. So we'll talk about Taylor Swift. Yeah. Okay, so Rabih, let's start with you. Hit us with the economic update. You said before we went on, there's actual news, so I'm excited about this.
Yes, there is actual news, and it's coming from the second most important person after Taylor Swift, which is Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve. And
they should do a collab. They got to do like a song.
They got to get some collab
video or something. Yeah,
I agree. Oh, can you imagine Jerome Powell in a Taylor Swift video? Oh my gosh, I'd pay money to see that. It'd be amazing. Anyway, Rabih, continue.
So last week, the Federal Reserve had their, kind of monthly meetings where they decide on the trajectory of interest rates, and they decided to not increase interest rates, which leave them at the 5.5, 5.75 level. And they, as every quarter, released their summary of economic projections, which it became a tradition on the show to just talk about it and like say, hey, here's what the Fed is predicting and see how this prediction is moving every quarter, right? So I pulled up the numbers for this one, and what it's showing is that what they think is going to happen to GDP didn't really change. 2023 is still stronger than they thought, just thanks to consumers, right? A lot of spending happening. So
we love spending. It takes a lot for us not to spend in America.
Exactly. So they thought that in 2023, the economy will only grow at 1% for like the whole year. They changed their forecast to actually a double of that. So now they think in 2023, the economy is going to grow at like 2.1%, which is above the trend. And then in 2024, 2025, it goes below the trend to stabilize at around the 2% level over time. So they're not pricing in a recession. They're just going to say below trend growth for the next couple of years, but 2023 is good. Unemployment rate is going to stay where it is at like the 3.8 levels, and inflation is trending downwards according to their expectations. So not much of a surprise, except, and this is what the market reacted to lately, their change on what the forecasted Fed funds rate are going to be, which means what they think interest rates are going to be. For the end of this year, they have always communicated that there's still one more hike, in their pocket that they're going to utilize before the end of 2023. And this is still on the table. They're still going to meet 3 times, and they might just increase 25 basis points at one point. But for 2024, the market has priced in the interest rates will be around 4.6% for the year, which is 1% lower than the current level it is right now. However, the Fed went up, published their economic summary, and they were like, hey, we actually think that next year interest rates are going to be in the 5.1 level, which means instead of discounting all future cash flow for all stocks around the world at a 4.6%, they're discounting it at the 5.1, which, because you're considering the whole future, it drops the value of stocks. So instead of 100% basis point to drop in interest rates next year, the Fed is saying it's only going to be 50. And that half a percentage point is actually very significant for the market. And now they are readjusting their expectations. So part of why September has held its reputation as being one of the worst months for the market, this is not a trading strategy, by the way, the market is down like 5% for the month, is because the market is reviewing its expectations to align them better with the Fed, which are saying that interest rates are gonna be higher for longer. And those are mainly the economic and / monetary policy headwinds that are affecting the market. But this is not the only thing affecting the market. But before I go into the other stuff, I wonder whether you guys have any questions. I know Matt will have comments about how the Fed keeps changing their prediction.
No, I know I actually don't. I was actually going to say, if you're not here to give me trading strategies, then what are we doing here? Like, that's the only reason I come on the show with you, Rabih, is that you're going to give me trading strategies. Basically, I should have sold at the beginning of September, is what you're saying.
Yeah, every year.
Thanks for that tip.
It's just
Thanks
September
for that
1st every year.
And isn't there's a recovery in October usually every year. So there you go. If you sold in September, wait till October. We are totally kidding people. We're not advocating for.
We usually leave those to like 2 cents after hours, which is a paid podcast, by the way.
There you go. For all of Rabih's tips. No, I just think it's interesting. It is kind of crazy when you think about that. Like you explained it's 50 bips, right? It's half a percentage point difference, but like what an impact. Like we just talked about it earlier today, the reaction of the market. It was down, the S&P was down on 1.5% just today. And it sounds like it's basically off of this news, or that's what that's the meaning we're attributing to this. It's crazy that 50 basis points can make that big of a difference.
Yeah. And data is random all around us, and we're trying to like draw a straight line between all these data points to come up with a narrative. And looking at monetary policy and what the Fed is telling us kind of explains why the market dropped that 1.5% or why it went down in September 5%. No one actually knows. And there are other factors and other headwinds. And I think something to shed light on is, you remember last week we were talking how oil is up the highest point it ever for 2023. The barrel is over $90. This is the highest it's been for 2023. It's nothing compared to the previous years because we've been through a roller coaster, but this has its impact. As a result of that, interest rates went up. And the trend has continued. When interest rates go up, the currency follows it in a sense, because people would want to buy that currency to invest at the higher interest rates. So with the dollar going up due to higher interest rates, expectations about the global economic growth are actually shifted downwards, because a stronger dollar means it's harder for countries around the world to import commodities that are in US dollars, which means a slower economic growth, and a slower economic growth globally means a hit to the US market as well, the US stock market. So there are multiple headwinds happening from side to side that all in, like, to an extent explain why the market has been going down. It's not anything that's serious or scary in terms of like the data that's coming in, and this is just part of how the market fluctuates. But it's worth noting how these numbers fit into the bigger picture and fit into the story. Last point I want to mention before I give you the microphone back.
Before we start talking about Taylor Swift and tipping,
before we talk about the main event, is that there is a headwind coming from the strikes. This is inflationary pressure as well. So when people are striking, companies are not producing. And given that the strike is still in one sector, it's not something to be scared of. But in economic terms, when employees strike, supply is limited. And when supply is limited and demand is unaffected, there are more people rushing to the same amount of goods, which is an inflationary pressure, which would tell you that if it continues that way, maybe the Fed will need to increase interest rates even further. And the last point is, during the press conference for the Federal Reserve last week, they were asking them, what are the potential risks of a government shutdown? And if a government actually shuts down, most probably we'll have another episode about this, but something that he noted is that a lot of those reporting agencies, such as the U.S. Bureau of Labor and where we get our CPI data from, all of these people will be out of work because they are federal employees, and we will not be getting up-to-date data, which might slow down the pace at which policymakers can act, simply because they don't have the data at hand. And this is a risk, but as soon as they pick up their work again and they are able to publish data, hopefully we'll be able to make educated decisions regarding the forward path of the economy.
You wonder if that's a good or a bad thing if we don't get enough data. It's like there's nothing to honestly, like there's nothing to react to. And in some cases, like you see what happens every time, Chairman Powell opens his mouth, there's this massive reaction. But on the other hand, there's much more room for speculation and rumors and Twitter and all this kind of stuff. So I guess you don't know what that impact would have. But Will, anything you want to add on any of this?
No, I just think it's what I like is that like this is just part of the cycle. Like Rabih's saying, it's a downward. Well, September always goes down, I guess, but
always.
Wait, disclaimer. It does not always go down. But here's where like sorry to interrupt you, Will. Here's like where the myth comes from. If you just take the average return for the month for all the months across all the years, on average, the market goes down 0.5% in September, where our other months are positive, and that's why they say, oh, September is a bad month. But this is on average. It doesn't mean in any specific number it's going to be down. Right?
I just think it's cool that like all of this information that we have, and you're right, Matt, like that's sometimes the information, it's nice to get it out of the way in a way, because right now the market pressure is pricing in something that hasn't even happened yet, right? Like and so when it does happen, that it's not like the market's going to react when they raise interest rates again, or if they lower interest rates less than what they say they are, because the market will know beforehand. So it's at this point, it's kind of too late. I mean, there's not really like a speculating game. This is why we always advocate for riding the wave, because by the time you hear the announcement, the market's already moved, most likely because of either some leading information heading into the announcement, especially with interest rates and the Fed and everything, right? So, bottom line, don't stress it too much. Don't worry about it.
And that's kind of the point of this whole show, right? Is we want to give. It's kind of like a give and take here, right? We want to make sure we're always advocating for not thinking about things in the short term, but then we're obviously here giving short-term data and headlines and stories. But I think we're doing it hopefully with a dose of reality to say, we say this a lot on this, like, remember what game you're playing. You're not playing a week-to-week game. You're not playing the game that a lot of these traders, and there's a difference between being a trader on Wall Street versus an investor. And every single person listening to this show, I would imagine, is an investor focused on the long term. So in reality, none of this stuff matters to your long-term strategy. It's still good to know and hopefully be informed. But again, just keeping in mind that you're playing a different game. So when the market is shifting around, that's usually as a result of people that are playing different games than you. So a lot of times when people are like, hey, what should I do about X, Y, or Z thing happening? Like a government shutdown or these strikes, what should I be doing? And our response every single time will be stick to your long-term strategy, stick to the strategy that fits your personal life. So hopefully we can give that different perspective here. So Rabih, awesome as always, getting the big heavy stuff out of the way so this sets the stage for the most important stuff.
Yeah.
Tipping and Taylor Swift. So Will, let's just jump to you on tipping culture in the article you were looking at.
I just read an article this week on Twitter that said, it was some clickbait headline, obviously, but it said something like tipping on out, like, I don't know. Let me just read the headline. Tipping restaurants falls for the first time in year, blame tip fatigue. So, they're basically trying to draw attention to the fact that Toast released a survey saying tipping's the lowest on average it's been since pre-pandemic. And I mean, we said at the beginning of the show, Americans love to spend. So maybe when the pocketbook gets tight, then they just cut their tips.
The first thing to go.
Yeah, they're not going to get the one less appetizer. They're just going to tip a little less, maybe. So I just think it's interesting. I don't know. I don't think that means anything for the economy, but I do think tipping culture is interesting today, and it is a money topic. And so when I go to fill up my own self-serve frozen yogurt ice cream at Menchie's, and I put my own toppings on and I fill it all up, and then the person, and I put it on a scale. I put it on a scale myself.
Get him, Will.
And then they ask me for a tip. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm bringing the average down because I'm not tipping you. However, I believe in tipping I wonder what your guys' take is on this. Like, what is appropriate tipping etiquette these days? Do dentists ask for tips? Are there any dentists out there asking for tips after they, do a crown? I don't know.
Hey, I have so many thoughts on this. Robbie, do you have any? Do you have thoughts?
Sorry, I got muted. Rookie mistake.
Rookie, how long you been doing this, Robbie? We've been doing this for months now.
No, sorry. Maybe my perspective is different because I grew up in Lebanon, and over there, tipping isn't really something that's culturally prominent. It's suggested if you want to tip, you go ahead and tip, but if you don't tip, you're not going to be frowned upon. That's the attitude over there. And I grew up just tipping 10% whenever I get a service. So in my mind, if I'm paying just for a product, I will not tip. If I'm paying for a service, I will tip on top of the product I'm getting. So a haircut is a service, a sit-in, dine-in restaurant is a service. Takeout is not a service for me. So here's where I draw the line, and I think I'm very diplomatic about it. But I don't do 10% in the US. I think the big difference shift for me was like, oh, you guys do 20.
You're supposed to do 20, yeah.
15 if you're annoyed, 20 if it's okay, 25 if you really like the person, right? So that was maybe I don't think there's anything wrong with tipping in the US. Maybe the amount is a little bit too high. That's my opinion of it.
Well, and to your point, Robbie, this is where I get, so I'm a sucker. I'm a total sucker for that. What you just said,
when they
Will.
turn the screen around,
They turn
and
the
they're
screen
staring
around
at you,
and you're sitting there. And my issue is I'm a sucker for it because like I think like many of us, probably all of us in some form or fashion have worked those jobs, right?
Yeah.
I started my quote unquote career. It wasn't really a career. I was forced. I was basically at 16 years old. My parents were like, you're 16, you have a car, you are now getting a job. So of course, like most young kids, you get into the food industry. I worked at Little Caesars. I worked at basically the equivalent of a Subway local sandwich shop. I did restaurants up in Park City. So I know what that is like to work those crappy jobs. And so when that happens, when I go to those restaurants, I feel for those people. I kind of, maybe I make a poor assumption. This is probably the poor assumption I make, which is I assume that those people that are helping me or that are working behind the counter are getting the tips. And I don't know if that's true at this point. Like it's all through Toast, to your point. Most restaurants I go to now have like a Toast emblem and they're using that technology.
Sale, something, yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know what that software does. I don't know what that business does with those tips. Like, do they allocate them a certain percentage and they take the other? Like, I don't know. So I actually was told recently by some friends that I need to stand my ground at like you're saying, Will. There's a difference between a self-serve place and a restaurant with a server that's getting paid $5 an hour, right? And their job is to serve you at the restaurant. I just think that's very different. What I am so confused by on this is what services get tipped and what don't, right? So we talked about this. Like I go to a girl who does my hair, or does my hair. I sound like it. Like cuts my hair, right? I get my hair cut every month. And I go to the same person. She's a friend of mine. I go to her every month. So she sets her price. She's an independent contractor. She rents space, and then she has her price. And I'm like, okay, that's your price. I'll pay that price. And then she goes and hands me her phone, and there's always a tip thing. And it's just kind of expected, to your point, that you tip another 20, 25%. Why is that? Why don't you just,
because it's like, why didn't you just say,
just tell me your price is 25% more and let's just cut the crap. I just, again, restaurants,
for a fact with her, all the money is going to her pocket. Like it's the same deal.
And I'm happy to pay that price with the tip. I just don't understand why we have to go through this song and dance of like the tip. Just tell me your price and I'll pay it, or I won't. But like, anyway, that's where I get confused. The same thing with like tattoo artists, the same thing, there's certain industries that it's kind of a known thing. You tip them, but like, do you tip your mechanic? No. Do you tip someone coming to like do a service at your house? Probably not. I don't know where the origins of this came, where certain services get tipped and others don't.
That's what's interesting is like the headline says blaming tip fatigue, which I think is maybe a recent thing because of these point of sale softwares that like I always get surprised, and I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but I always get surprised when I like pay for something. I feel like I was at Jiffy Lube or something the other day, and it like just popped up on the little kiosk, like little point of sale after I tapped my card, and I was like, I don't know, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah.
And so I wonder if dentists should start implementing tips.
Maybe, maybe we should have dentists start doing it. I mean, I want to get tipped. Like maybe we should do some type of tip.
We should do it.
We're going to send a link out with our shows and say, hey, if you want to tip us, like here it is.
Little tip
No,
jar.
that is interesting. I don't think there's anything that has anything to do with the economy turning or anything. I think tip fatigue is probably a valid way to describe this. I know for me, recently since COVID, because this exploded during COVID, right? It was kind of this whole like support your local businesses, support these restaurants. I think people probably tipped exponentially more. And now people are I think fatigue is probably the right word. So anyway, any other final thoughts on tipping?
Just put my Venmo in the show notes.
Yeah, perfect. We'll put our Venmo in the show notes. You guys can pick who did the best job on the show and then tip us. No, I think that is interesting. I will say last thing, I have finally started to take a stand a little bit and on like the self-service type things, Will, to your point, or like the Cafe Rio type places where you just kind of walk through the line. I've started to finally, literally like first time in my life, hit no tip. And I feel super uncomfortable sometimes. I kind of hate it. It makes me really uncomfortable. Like, are they looking? I don't know, but I finally started hitting no tip. So I'm part of this article. I'm part of this.
You're the one. Yeah,
I'm the one. I'm the one. Okay. Last but not least, in any way, we have been told we cannot say anything negative about Taylor Swift. We are being told from certain members of our team that the Swifties, as they are called, will come after us. There's actually
they'll find the dentist money showing.
Honestly, I will tell you a quick story that Powell told me earlier as we get into this. But okay, we would be remiss if we did not hit like the biggest headline, I think, of the last week, which is Taylor Swift showed up at the Kansas City Chiefs game. I was watching the game live. The broadcast was going nuts. They showed her probably no less than 100 times during every time something happened. They showed Taylor Swift in the box. Do you know the origins of this, Will? I'm guessing you know the origins of this, of everything that happened.
Yeah, she's dating Travis Kelce, who's the tight end for the Chiefs.
Okay, but so here's my question: are they officially dating?
Well, I think so now. I mean, okay. I think that was like he tweeted at her and said, "I've seen you rock the stage at Arrowhead, which is where the Chiefs play their football games." And then it said something like, "Now it's time for you to come see me play a game at Arrowhead." And it happened. Okay. And then it happened, and everyone
then she showed up
because she showed up. She sat with his mom in the box. She was wearing Chiefs gear. They left the game together. Big deal.
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure. I thought this was maybe like they're friends, and this was an attempt at clout chasing, kind of like us right now talking about Taylor Swift or clout chasing. No shame in that. But here's what's crazy. I will never not be surprised and blown away at what is called the Swiftie effect. It is unreal. And we're not going to go into great detail because Victoria will kill us. She wants to do a full show where she's a part of it and talking about even bigger picture stuff of like her concert and like the economic impact. It's pretty
just
wild.
Do a full podcast. Like
she wants to do a full podcast on Swiftie or Taylor Swift. But I will say, so just like you said, Will, he finally got her to come to a game. I guess he's been asking or trying to do this, whatever. Yeah. It's been kind of a work in progress. Yeah, he's been shooting a shot for a while. But here's what's crazy. And you didn't think you'd see this on Dennis Money or on the 2 Cent Show. We're talking about Taylor Swift. Here we are. Here's what's wild. So 3 key points that happened instantaneously after this happened, and everyone like freaked out. His Instagram followers went up by 300,000 in a day. This like the same day or the next day after all of that. His merchandise sales went up by 400%. And he is now, and I actually need to know this, I need to go look into this. I don't know where his jersey sales were ranked. He was probably already decently high, but he went from wherever he was to now he is top 5 in jersey sales after one day, after literally one shot of Taylor Swift in the box wearing his jersey. And now he is like the biggest football player on the planet.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Crazy. Yeah. I guess the moral of the story is that all of you dentists out there that have social media should be posting about this, because you're going to get clicks and followers, 300,000 followers if you post about it apparently.
Yeah. I mean, if you were able to get her to show up at your practice, if you show up to get the teeth cleaning, then I think you would
just start shooting your shot.
Just start shooting your shot, get her to show up at your practice. But we obviously joke, this was kind of Will, you and I are football fans. I know, Rabih, you're not as big of a football fan, but I did watch this, and we've been talking about it at the office. All jokes aside, it is unbelievable. I don't know if she has got to be top 3 to 5 of all time in regards to her impact from an artist, from a celebrity standpoint. Like, she's on another level now as far as like.
Did you see?
Go ahead, Will.
Did you see she left the suite in like a popcorn?
Hey, is this real? Is this real? I heard this.
I mean, I think it's real. I guess believe what you see on Twitter, but X. Sorry, believe what you see on X. But there were people outside the suite the whole game waiting to see her, and she never left the suite. On foot. People stayed there until like everybody left. And she never left suite on foot. So
unbelievable. I can't even imagine like being at that level where you can't go anywhere
in public. Yeah.
In public. Yeah. I mean, we see it a little bit ourselves,
Yeah,
you do.
Popularity. You and Ryan. Yeah.
Ryan and I, we get stopped occasionally at dental events and whatnot. It's a tough life. It's a tough life. We're like just a smidge below Taylor Swift as far as popularity goes. Yeah. So I have to leave events sometimes in like it's not popcorn, it's like a big tooth. They just put me in and will me out. But anyway, Rabih, any thoughts on Taylor Swift before we finish this up?
I was
nothing negative. Nothing negative.
No. It's killing me.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by like how similar the behavior between fans of Taylor Swift and like fans of Warren Buffett. Like fans of Warren, like the moment that the principal agent made a decision, everyone has this herding behavior to flock off it. And the investment where the moment Warren Buffett sells a bunch of his Apple shares for whatever reason, everyone dumps their Apple shares. Whenever they go into accidental petroleum, that thing skyrockets 50% in a month, which I find so interesting about humans just fixating on a certain person that in their mind, and granted, justified, they are successful and they just mimic whatever they do. And they create this herding effect. It's a tail risk in a sense, but it's so fascinating.
It's so true. And you're right. I mean, we could apply the psychology of humans, what's happening with Taylor Swift, to exactly what you're saying with markets. And the reason why we continually have what we have with markets, and it'll never change as far as herding behavior and people trying to time things. Like we're kind of speaking to the same type of principles, just like human psychology. Humans will never change. And so, Rabih, heck of a job bringing it back to something relevant in markets and investing. We're gonna end it there. Unless, Will, any other thoughts on any of this?
No, T Swift is the Warren Buffett of investing, or the Warren Buffett of music. Yeah, I will say we were talking about last thing. We were talking about what we would nerd out on, or Rabih asked me, "Hey, do you get like shock from seeing a celebrity if you ever saw a celebrity?" And I was like, there's like a handful maybe that I would be shocked, or that I would be like starstruck. And Victoria was saying Taylor Swift, top of her list. And then Rabih, who was your number one that you said?
Jerome Powell.
Jerome
Reserve.
That just shows you Rabih's level of
I'm going to die alone.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We're going to end it there. Thank you everyone for listening, whether it be live or on the podcast. That was our 2 cents. We appreciate you. We will see you next time.